Hey, what's up? What's up? What's up, everybody?
Hey,
What's
everybody.
going on? What's going on? We are back
We're
live
back.
tonight. We're going to give everybody a couple moments to join us online, wherever you are. If you're in your car, if you're in your home, you're in the office, join us tonight. Hit like, hit share. Peace is power. And tonight's topic, I'm so excited about it because it's grief, loss,
Loss and
and
hope.
hope. So listen, we'll give people a couple of moments to log in, to get online, to see it run across. Do me a favor right now. Go to your phone right now, wherever you are, and hit like and hit share. I'm going to my phone right now and go online to get it. Hit like and hit share. We are live. We are
We are also
live.
on YouTube tonight. So my YouTube channel is Dr. Journeyl Harris. So if you don't have Facebook Live and you want to join us on YouTube, then we are on YouTube as well.
We're on YouTube. Y'all here? Yeah, so join us tonight, y'all. This is going to be really, really good. And tonight we're bringing on some amazing guests. And with two of our guests, we hope that they would join us. I know that they're in the car. They're probably eating somewhere, right?
Yes.
We hope that they join us. I'm going to text them and tell them, listen, get on right where you are because it's important that we have the conversation. And we're excited about tonight's topic. And it's going to be peace is power. We're going to be talking about grief. We're going to be talking about loss, and we're going to be talking about hope. And tonight is like dedicated to all of you who have lost a family member, job, relationship,
Yep.
children. What else? We can go on and on
Yeah.
about the many things that we can lose as human beings, and the way that it affects us and impacts us as human beings. And that's what tonight's all about. Tonight's all about peace is power. Peace is power. So let's just begin to invite everybody back in.
Yeah.
I'm going to reset it again, reset the stage real quickly. Everybody,
Nolan is in the background too.
Nolan
out here.
Look, he's got some chicken nuggets from McDonald's, so he's happy. He's happy and he's singing. But tonight's topic, everybody, is peace is power. Grief, loss, and hope. I'm Dr. Tevis Harris, and this is my wife, Dr. Journeyl Harris.
Hi.
And this is her show, y'all. This is like her show that she's created for the month of May. So we got to talk about mental health awareness. This is the month for it. Let's talk about mental health awareness.
So May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and so we are just bringing awareness and having conversations that we may not typically have about our emotions, about our mental health, and how it all plays together for our overall well-being. And so we decided to kind of come to you for the month of May. I think this is our third week.
Mm-hmm.
So next week will be our last week. And so, but we wanted to have conversations. And so tonight, this topic was, really heavy on my heart to talk about grief and loss. It's personal to us. And we'll talk a little bit about that later, but it also seems very pertinent and relevant to everybody. The last 2 years have been incredibly hard.
It's been difficult.
And
Very
so
difficult.
There's been a lot of loss. And so when I was thinking about tonight, I was like, I don't want it to be like sad. I want to honor our emotions. I mean, I know you don't do sadness, but we want to honor our emotions, but we also want to leave with some hope, and we want to leave with maybe you need some resources. Maybe there are some things that you can think about as you move through whatever your grief process looks like. And so hopefully we will have a couple of people on to talk about their process. And the amazing thing about doing this show, I was thinking today, like, every topic that I think about wanting to do, there are people who we know or who we love or who we have good relationships with that could speak to that topic. And so there are a lot of topics that are running through my mind. This is the next to last week, so I don't know if we won't get to all of them. But if Oprah called me, just know I got plenty of people that can go with me. So.
But not only that, but here's the amazing thing about that. You've been talking about the people in our lives, but these are people that we get to do life with.
Yeah.
These are our friends. These are our family members. These are people that we are close to. So everybody sit back. Listen, you want to get some popcorn and some chips and some sodas so you can get comfortable. This is going to be an interesting conversation. It's going to be a tight conversation. And I can probably imagine it's going to be a very emotional conversation too as well.
Yeah, so that's why we want to just really make sure we have some resources out there. Brianna, I see you on, so let me know where y'all are.
Hey, y'all gotta join us.
Let me know where y'all are.
Brianna and TJ, you guys have to join us tonight.
But yeah, so we're just really happy to be here. So make sure you share. And if you're watching a replay, thanks for watching the replay. So we'll give people a few more minutes, and then I'll kind of do an intro into what grief looks like, the stages of grief, and then we'll bring on a couple of people who were willing to share their stories. And maybe some of you in the comments want to share your stories. Maybe you want to talk about, some of the loss you may have experienced. Again, think about grief as, yes, the loss of people, but also if it's a career, if it's a job that you lost, if it is a transition, if it is a relationship. I was thinking when we, hey, Daddy, I see you on. I don't know if you all watch Married to Medicine. I love reality TV, so I watch reality TV all the time. Shout out to my reality TV buddies, Shirley and Sonia, especially Shirley. We watch all the reality TV together. But Married to Medicine had an episode, if you know Dr. Jackie, and she talked about she had just lost her father. And at the same time, she was going through some challenges in her marriage. And I remember her saying they were about to divorce. I think they reconciled, but she was saying that the loss of her marriage, her divorce, felt heavier than her father dying. And that statement has sat with me, and I kept processing, and it was like, her father dying was totally out of her control. Like, she had no control over it, right? So while she grieved it, the loss of her marriage, it was like this thing that it was dreams attached to that. It was potential attached to that. So she was grieving the loss of her marriage. So please, know this conversation is for everyone. We've all lost something. Tevis and I will share a little bit about the last 2 years for us, and then we will get started.
So let me reset the room real quickly. Reset the room. We want to welcome everybody real quickly to the Peace is Power. This is a new show that my wife created about 3 weeks ago. We came together and we was like, yo, let's have conversations about our mental health.
True story though, y'all. We almost didn't make it to this episode.
Almost didn't make it.
Let's just go ahead and put it out there.
So
the group almost broke up.
Look, so next week we can talk about marriage.
We almost didn't make it to this episode. Praise the Lord that we are here.
Praise God. Praise God.
The show was canceled, y'all.
Hey, listen.
About Thursday. Was it Thursday, Friday? The show was canceled. But we're glad to be here. Glad that we made it.
But check this out. So next week's episode, a topic can be marriage and mental health.
All right.
But that's an idea. But anyway, listen, you guys, this is the Peace is Power. And today's episode or show is about grief, loss, and hope. And we're excited that you guys are here. What we need you to do is hit like, hit share, and invite somebody into the room. Like, we need everybody, as many people as possible, to hear this, because this is going to get pretty deep. It's going to be pretty dope, though, because we're going to walk away empowered. We're going to walk away with an understanding that we've never had before. And I'm excited about the process, because this is what people need, man. So many people out there that I know, my friends. Hey, Mike. Hey, Crystal.
Hey, Crystal.
I'm Boo.
Hey, I'm Boo.
Listen, we got Max Avon present. He's present. He was on last week. We got the Professor Dawn Gibson, who's here. Dawn, we got to get you in.
Yes,
we got to get you in on the show.
So we ain't got but one more week left.
Oh, then next month will be my month. I'll do a show next month.
Okay.
Listen. Again, welcome to the Peace is Power, Grief, Loss, and Hope episode with Doctors Journeyl Harris. Here she is, right here in the flesh, everybody. And I'm her husband, Dr. Tevis Harris. And so we welcome you guys. Hey,
and we're glad to be on. If you're just coming on, we just told people the show was almost canceled.
Yeah.
We almost didn't make it to this episode, so we're glad that we're here. The group almost broke up.
Oh my God.
Then I'm going to come see you, Otis. But we here. We here.
Lord Jesus.
So
Pastor Anthony Gibson, who is that? That's husband?
That's her husband, yeah.
Hey, husband. Pastor Anthony. There's hope for unresolved grief. Okay.
Yes, but we're gonna have to bring you on too. So
Brenda Battle Addison
Crystal.
Today has been erupted. Today makes 10 months that my mom passed.
Thank you for sharing that, Crystal.
Yeah.
We've been praying for you and thinking about you, and we know that your journey probably resonates with a lot of people as well. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Yeah. So listen, we're not going to be late at the time.
Okay. All
we
right.
got two people who are waiting backstage, and we're going to bring them up if they're still there.
Yeah.
We're going to bring them on stage. Will you contact the other person to see if they're going to come to see if if they can come on and join us. We got two people backstage that we're excited to have on the show with us today. And we're going to talk about grief, loss, and hope. We're going to talk about their struggle. We're going to talk about what they experience. And it's none other than the brother and sister. Listen, y'all, they're in their car. They're in their car, and they're going to talk with us tonight.
So please don't be please look at the road, TJ. I can't take it. Just let Brianna do the talking.
And he can talk some too, you know.
Okay, yeah, but
Brianna hold the phone. Brianna hold the phone.
Brianna hold the phone.
Listen, yes, Dr. Don, it has been a difficult seeing the loss in Buffalo, New York yesterday. Yes, and we got to talk about those kind of issues. Let's bring on the amazing couple, Mr. and Mrs. TJ and Brianna. Welcome. Hey, y'all.
Hey,
welcome.
Y'all. Hey, y'all. Hey, thanks y'all for coming on for such short notice. And we know y'all on the road, so we want to make sure. Can everybody hear us?
They can hear.
We can hear? Okay.
Good.
So I just want to set, will you text Shamara too? Will you send her a new link? I just want to set like kind of some context. So when we think about grief and loss, you know, there are stages to grief and loss. And Kubler-Ross talks a lot about the different stages to grief and loss. And I want to go over a couple of them just so we can have some context. And then I want to ask, TJ and Brianna have been so gracious to share a little bit of their story and to allow me to ask them some questions. And so while we're waiting for that, I want to go through some of the stages. So the first stage that we talk about is shock and denial. And that's when you may be numb. That's when you may be like, I cannot believe this has happened. Then the next stage you may go through maybe some pain and the guilt. I feel guilty that XYZ. I should have XYZ. Then this is a stage I think a lot of people kind of get stuck in, the anger bargaining stage. If you do this, then do this. Or just sitting in the anger with yourself, anger at God, anger at the person who passed away, anger at maybe your spouse who initiated the divorce. There's a lot of anger there. Then you may move into the depression. That's when you feel that intense sadness. And then we start doing what we call the upward turn. And that's when you start maybe adjusting to some things, I don't think things go back to normal, but whatever your new normal is. And then we call the acceptance, that stage where you're working through, you're figuring things out. But here's the thing, these may not go in order, and you may jump from stage to stage, and you may be in acceptance one day, and then something will happen, and it may trigger some anger. And so don't find it strange if you're saying it's been 10 years and I saw a video or I heard a song on YouTube or Facebook and it just caused me to go into some deep depression or some deep anger. So don't think it's strange. And so I want to give that context for just the conversation. So welcome to TJ and Brianna. I text Brianna about 2:00 today and said, hey, don't say no yet. Hear me out. But would you be willing to come on and share a little bit? And I'll be very honest with you, Brianna. It was that video that you posted, and I'll let you tell your story, but it was the video you posted on Mother's Day about your precious baby and about, I feel like I'm about to cry, finding joy in that. And so will you tell a little bit about you all's story and your journey with grief, and then I'll have some questions for you as well.
Okay. Hello everybody, it's me, Brianna, and my husband TJ. So
we're backstage.
Y'all on stage now.
Oh, I'll say that.
So on June 15th of 2018, we lost our first baby girl, Leah Rain. And so it was very unexpected. It was not something that we thought we would have to go through. It just randomly happened out of nowhere, where I began having contractions. Things happened, and I prematurely had Leah early at 28 weeks. And so through that process, of course, we had to go through the NICU process and, us giving birth to her, and she passed away.
Did we lose Brianna?
We must have lost them. They're driving, so
yeah, they may have went through a bad spot.
Yeah, so they'll be back in. But as you can see, it's already getting very deep, everybody. They talked about the loss of their baby girl at 28 weeks. They had to go through the entire experience. And so let's talk about that. We know a lot of people who have lost babies, right? So in that experience, what are the possible steps that people go through in terms of that loss? Like, and how long does it, is that
Well, I don't think there's a time limit. I think I'm glad that Brianna and Shamar are up here now. Brianna, y'all back? Hey, Shamar. We lost you
we're
for
back. It's maybe in and out because we're on the road, so I do.
Okay.
We backstage got a little.
All right, so Brianna, you were at the part where you said you had to go through everything, the NICU and all those things. Can you start right there and continue the conversation?
Yep. And we had to leave the hospital without a child. I think that was the hardest part for us. And one of the biggest things that I remember to this day is when we first got in the car, TJ played Zaccardi quartet. Zaccardi. Fight this battle for me and help my unbelief.
Sing.
So that I can tell all my friends that you have won again, and that was hard. Like, won what? Like, what do we just win leaving this hospital without our child? And to this day, like, I still, have those moments where I'm like, where's the victory in it? However, like, I found victory in like being able to share my story and build community with people that have lost a child, and how we work through that, how we talk about it, and having somebody to talk to it with. Because it's hard. A lot of times you think, okay, I'm gonna be able to raise this child. And honestly, mothers that have lost their children, they're raising themselves back up from a death of their child. So that's
good. Hey, Brianna, stop right there. Mothers themselves are raising themselves back up. Let's talk about that. I mean, I guess we can have a whole conversation about that.
Right.
Let's talk about the process of you raising yourself back up in the midst of your grief.
Yeah. I don't even know where to begin with that because it was very dark for a while. And sometimes you don't know that you're in that space of darkness until you're so far in it, where you lose sight of what you once did before, and you're so stuck in the rut of what you're now doing, which is literally nothing. You're just soaking and sitting in grief. So at this point, I think that I'm learning, and we're learning to live through what has happened. Like, not to avoid it, not to act like it has not happened, but to live through it, and then have those moments where we can communicate about the life of Lyric. We can talk about, those moments where we were pregnant with Lyric, that amazing moment, and be like, even in our post, I said that I still have joy. And I'm grateful to God that I was able to experience that type of joy, even though it was only for a moment of time.
Wow.
Like, even when I look at the video, I'm like, God, I appreciate that joy and that happiness to be able to know that you've given me a gift so precious. And even if it was only for a moment, I appreciate that moment that you were able to give to me.
Wow.
So I think that part of me now is like, I'm able to go through my grief of appreciation. Like, although it was just a moment, God, I appreciate and I thank you for that moment, because I would have never been able to experience that type of joy or happiness, regardless of whether or not I was pregnant or if I lost her. I would have never been able to experience that if I would have not been pregnant with Lee. Not that type of happiness. So yeah. Can y'all hear me? You can.
Yeah, I can hear you. I think it may have been a connection loss on their part.
Oh, okay. Hey, friend.
Hey, girl, my dog was over here eating Vaseline. I hate Yep. Hey, y'all. Look at TJ with the hat. Okay.
We backstage.
Yeah, we backstage.
I need some chicken, man. Chicken and some lemonade or something. I'm a little parched. We were stopping this. Stop some store.
You would text her and see what's going on. Friend. Can y'all hear me? Shamar, can you hear me?
Flip to Facebook and see if you
Hey, Bree.
can you hear me.
Yes.
So Tavis just said, just keep
In half
going.
a mile, keep right at the fork to stay on
Okay.
I-40 East. Follow signs for Benson, Wilmington.
All right. So, one thing I did want to mention through the raising myself back up is that I had to admit my frustration with God. Admit
Keep
where
right at the
where I
fork to
was
stay
with
on
Him.
I-40 East.
And I think that was really big for me because I was frustrated and I was angry with Him. I needed understanding. I needed clarity of like
Continue
why
for
this had
4
to
miles.
happen to us. And so that was a big piece of just a grieving process for me, is just making sure that I was in connection with God, or just being able to have a relationship with Him, to be honest and transparent about my emotions, about my unbelief, my disbelief in the process. So that was one of the biggest things too, is just making sure that I had a conversation, or that I was clear about my frustration and anger and disbelief about what was going on through my process of losing to lyric.
Yeah, and I'm gonna piggyback off of you with that. And I think that was one of the hardest things for me to do, to just be honest and transparent with my true feelings, with being angry, because of course, just going back from a spiritual background, and what we've always been taught is that you don't get to be angry with God, and you don't get to
Absolutely.
have these feelings. But in all reality, I'm angry about the process. I'm hurt. Um, and I'm grieving the loss of what I thought was going to be. So just, having to experience not only just grieving the grief from losing the child, but also the grief of um, a life that I thought that I would have with that additional child and being able to rear him and raise him and
That
things
part.
like that. And so, going back to what you said about having to raise yourself, you literally go back to almost um, being so numb and so weak. You are that little child that really cannot express those true feelings that you are feeling, because again, you don't want people to really know, that you really are upset, and that even though you're singing those songs, I trust you, God, you're a good, good father, and all of those things, something in that heart, you really don't feel that, even though you know that he is struggling with that. And just being honest about, your true feelings. So yeah, so what I was saying was going back to being that little child again, it put me in a position to really tap into learn who I was as a person. And so from that experience of losing Jax in 2018, the Shamar that I am in 2022 is a totally different person. Because I had to have those hard, uncomfortable moments with myself and with God.
Yeah.
Hey
And I
y'all,
think also,
we
Shamar,
lost our
me and
internet
Shamar became
connection,
really,
but
became, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
hey, we lost our internet connection, but I was able to join my phone. But it sounds like y'all doing the show by yourself, so go ahead on. I really appreciate it. I joined in when Shamara was talking, so I heard a little bit of what she was saying. But one of the questions I did want to ask, I don't know if y'all covered this. Shamara, you said, and Brianna, you talked about when you got in the car, TJ played that song, like we won, like what have we won? And then Shamar, you were talking about like he's a good father. Well, my reaction would be if he's a good father, like why would he do this to me? Like why would he take this person that I love? So how did y'all? What did your faith process look like with your grief? The good, the bad, and the ugly. The I'm mad at God. I don't want to talk to God. I'm clinging to God because this is all I have. Like, what did that look like for y'all? Whoever wants to jump in first, and TJ can add
Um,
too.
okay, well,
Whatever he wants.
I'm gonna give a little bit background about my story. So I was 26 weeks um pregnant with our son Jax, and I had been trying to conceive for about 5 years, 4 or 5 years. And finally, I got to that point, and when I first found out I was expecting, I was a little nervous, of course. And so it's like as soon as I became open with, okay, we're expecting, probably about 3 to 4 weeks later, we experienced the loss. And for me, my experience was a little bit different because I remember having a dream 2 nights prior to that. And in my dream, I dreamed that a child's umbilical cord was wrapped around their neck, not knowing
Mm.
that I would be attached to that dream.
Wow.
And so my experience was I went to the doctor and I explained to the doctor that, my son wasn't moving as much, and there was a lot of neglect and negligence there. And come to find out, he had actually there was an umbilical cord accident where he was born sleeping. And so when I found out, it was just a whole process, because in that moment I was by myself. I had to go back home, explain that, to my husband and the kids, and because we had older children and all of that. And so it was a very tough situation, which goes right back into your question. I have been trusting and saying, at one point I was like, I just give up. I'm not going to try anymore. This is not happening for me. We're still not conceiving. And to finally get there and go through all of these moments of excitement to experience a loss, I was angry. I was very angry.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so in the beginning, even though I knew that I was angry, I could not express those feelings because, again, as I was saying earlier, you're just taught not to do that. Right? And I was just,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna be okay. Um, all of those things, cliche things that people say, because they don't know what to say. But for me, I remember actually texting you, Janae, and saying, "Hey, I'm at the hospital and I have some stuff, I have to labor. Can you send me a playlist?" And in that
I
moment,
remember that.
I immediately knew that I needed God in that moment to get through being able to birth this child, because I still had to go through the whole birthing process. But after holding him and leaving the hospital, all of that faith and everything, I just felt like everything was taken away from me. So instead of me pouring myself close, like pulling to get closer to God, I backed away from him because of the anger,
Mm,
because of the resentment and not understanding why. And so there was a journey, and luckily I had a lot of, good women and men that came and they saw that I was struggling, that supported me and encouraged me and sent me words of wisdom, even though they didn't really know what to say. I had, my sister girls that kept me close to the word. And even though in those moments they knew that I was struggling, I was angry, sometimes they would just send me a scripture and they didn't even know how it blessed me. I may have strolled by it in that moment, but I would go back 2 or 3 days later and read it. And so
mm,
that was pretty much my process. So I went from not wanting to deal with God, being angry with God, to falling face flat, like having to come back to him because I realized that he was what I needed. Um in the grief process, and there was nothing that man on earth could do to help me heal. TJ and Bree, if y'all had anything to add. I think they lost connection again.
They don't.
Keith, you like tasting?
Shabari was good.
Hey, did y'all have anything to add to her question there? I think they lost connection again.
No problem.
I'm back again. I don't know what is going on. I don't know what is going on. We're gonna try it for a few more minutes because I really do want to get this information out there to people. So I have no idea what is going on with my internet and my phone, but
Okay.
whatever. But Shamar, I was hearing you say like how you had strayed away or stayed away from God for a while, and then kind of coming back to this place of surrender and being connected to God. And I think that's a normal part of the process, and I want to normalize that for people. Like, if your first reaction is not to say, people say things cliche because they just don't know what else to say. We say things like, "Oh, God needed another angel," or, "This is a homegoing service. You shouldn't be sad," or whatever. But that's just not true. Like, right, we have human reactions and human feelings. So it's very normal if you are going through a process and you feel like, I don't really feel connected right now. I don't really feel close to God right now. CJ, if you can look at the road and still talk, I would like to ask you as a pastor, what was your faith process like with the loss of your daughter?
Um, so I kind of like feel like faith in itself is a process, and so the whole experience, was just a portion of my faith and my faith and spiritual, development in general. I still can remember, holding the baby as she took her last breath. God
Mm,
has allowed us to have that experience, and so it's moments like that for me kind of just helps to mold your faith, and knowing that life is a fight for sanity, and that life will continue, and you're gonna have different situations where your faith is going to be tested and tried, and so we say a lot of things, and we want our faith tested and tried until it's actually tested and tried. So stuff like that helps you build your faith, for when it comes time to have it tested and tried. Just depending on the level of life in which you're trying to live, and your proximity of your walk, and just your vow to God, or even what God has already predestined your life to be. You've gotta your faith will be tested and tried, and so I don't know. I take a different approach than Bree, she sort of calls me. What she called me the other day? She calls me emotionalist, but it's not that I don't have emotions. I deal with and cope with test trials and tribulations different, even grief. I deal and handle it differently, and sometimes I can do that through a lot of humor and just different things and positive stuff. But yeah, it faith itself is a process. So I'm still in that journey of just developing, and building my faith. But I utilize that moment to really strengthen my faith and to know that even something that tragic, um, God will still reveal Himself and reveal something through it all. And so it won't destroy you. It might break you down, but it won't kill you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that's sort of the perspective I have about it, how I deal
Mm-hmm.
with it.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all for sharing. And I talked a little bit about the stages of grief. What stage would you all say you may have spent the most time in? Shamar, you laughed. I think I know yours, but go ahead.
Um, oh, the most. Mm, 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 mm. I'm gonna let someone else go first because I really need to think
Okay.
about. I would want to say anger, but then I wouldn't say that that's true because what I have done is, like Brianna said, I had to think about those positive moments. You you get what I'm saying?
Mm.
So I don't want to say anger. Remind me of those stages again. Mm,
So, and I
Brianna,
was
you can.
thinking too, like I remember. Go ahead, Brianna.
Oh, I wasn't saying anything yet. Unless you want me to, you can go ahead though.
Which stage would you say you spent the most time in, Brianna?
Um, Honestly, it would probably be sadness, depression, because it would go back and forth. Like I'll be up and down, but I spent a lot of my time in sadness and depression because with something so tragic like that, when other bad things happen, it add on
Mm,
to that, you know. And so you don't just carry the grief and the loss of that child. Now you carry the grief and the loss of something totally different, and it just adds on to it. So I'm be very transparent and honest that I spent a lot of my time, and I spent a lot of my time going back to that, if I'm honest. Um,
mm,
because it's a cycle. You may have to go
right.
back to that because there's maybe some work that you still have to do. So I've spent a lot of my time going back to the sadness because there was something did not gain, or it was something that I needed to gain from those dark moments of with God, or just those deep moments with God that I had to go back, or I'm still going back, if I'm honest. So yeah.
Hmm. I was thinking about 2020, and Sevis and I talked a little bit about our personal losses. I felt like we were taking loss after loss after loss. Like I was grieving things, not just people, but like career transitions and community losses. Like I just felt like every month it was just something hitting us. And I remember as a lot of you all know my uncle passed away in 2020, and I remember when he was sick towards the end. I God, I was like a bargaining stage. I was like, just don't
Yes.
take him in 2020. Like, I know he's sick. I know things are bad. And I even know that he's ready. But can you just not take him? I mean, it was a very selfish prayer. And I'm being very transparent about it. But I was like, to your point, Brianna, like, I can't think anything else right now. Like, I don't have the capacity to hold anything else right now. And he died. He ended up dying. And I just remember sitting with God saying, like, I mean, what more do you want me to to process and to hold and to carry? And so it's been interesting how things and memories can take you back to a different place of grief. And so, yeah, I just remember that part. I spent a lot of time in bargaining. Like, if you do this, and I'll do this, or like, don't do this right now. I'll do this right now. I spent a lot of time there, and so I Appreciate y'all sharing that. So for those of you who may be just joining, we've had a lot of technical difficulties tonight, but my guests are so amazing. They kind of carried the show themselves, so I appreciate that. But we're talking about grief, loss, and hope, and we were blessed to have Brianna and TJ and Shamar share a little bit about their stories and how they have walked through their journeys. And I've been able to watch from afar and up close some parts of their journey, and I've just been so I don't like, it's hard to say inspired because it sounds like I would never want anyone to have to go through that. But what I have is I've learned a lot from the ways in which you all have processed your journey, the honesty you all have given about the hard parts and the transparency in which you've operated. And I think whether you know it or not, you all have helped a lot of people just in the way you have walked things out. And so I appreciate you all for sharing, for coming on tonight the last minute. I know there were some parts I missed. What I do hope that you gain from their stories, though, is that, you know, and we think about this is all about faith and mental health. And so there's a scripture that talks about we don't grieve as those without hope. And so, yes, we are human. Yes, we go through those hard phases, and you may be angry, you may be sad, but we hope that you have carried a bit of hope from this conversation, in that, and that they've normalized a part of that process. And it took work to get where they are, though. And I don't want to gloss over that part of it. So like, you're seeing them now after a lot of work. So if you're in a grieving process right now, we are here. We support you. We're sending a lot of love. And they were intentional about the work. And so I've had the privilege of being a little up close with Shamar, her journey. And I just know how intentional she was about putting the work in. Erica made a comment. She said one thing, both Ericas. So Erica Sharp said, one thing that helped me with the loss of a close loved one, I changed my perspective on their departure. She said she used the word transition instead of died.
Yes.
And so I think that's important. We have to remember and hold on to the parts of our faith that give us hope for the journey. And so it's important to think about those of us from the Christian tradition that this is not an end, right? This is not an end. And Erica Mitchell said, yeah, it's like a domino effect. One thing can trigger another. That is so true. Tamika said it was hard for her to remember that my husband was grieving because of her own hurt. And we could do a whole show about how couples and partners process grief differently. Even if you're grieving the same thing or you're grieving, I think about it with just in full transparency with holidays for me and Tevis. It's very interesting, particularly Mother's Day, because I'm all about celebrate me, let's do this. And I'm mindful. I try to be mindful that he's lost his mom and what that holiday may bring up for him. And so trying to navigate that as couples can be a very interesting process. So yeah, so two people can be in different places with their grief. So what does hope look like? I talked a little bit about the work. I'm a proponent of getting a counselor, helping you work through that grief, having a safe place to process, a place. If you need to find a counselor, Psychology Today is a great resource where you can search in your area. For those of you who have health insurance benefits, a lot of times employment assistance programs, you get a number of either heavily reduced or free sessions that are included in your health benefits. That's a great opportunity. For those college students, there's a college counselor on campus. For those school-age kids, the school counselor is a great resource. So really take advantage of the people who can sit and hold that space for you. Because here's the other thing that's hard to realize. But the people who are close to you, although they can support you, although they can love you, they are not your counselors. And so sometimes we get frustrated because we expect people in our lives to be our therapists, and they just aren't. And it's not fair to have the expectation of them. So definitely, I am a proponent of finding you a therapist and a counselor to help you process this grief. I'm trying to think of anything else to say. I feel a little bit scattered because we had some technical difficulties, but I hope the message was able to get out that, we have experienced grief, loss, but that we hope that, hope is what you leave with, and that you normalize your process, but that you also put in the work to heal and to be whole. And healing doesn't look like it never impacts you. I mean, Shamar, I don't want to speak for you, but I can imagine holidays like Mother's Day, when you see kids that are would be Jackson's age, things like that can be a trigger or can take you back there. So healing doesn't mean you're numb to it. It just means that you have some tools and some resources to help you navigate it. So Crystal said, yeah, it's a great resource. She gets free sessions by being employed at the hospital. I tell everybody, take advantage of your employee assistance programs. It's there for a reason. College students, take advantage of that college counselor. You are already paying for it. You're already paying for it. So you want to make sure that you take advantage of it.
Janae, can I
So
add
what does
something really
coping
quick?
look like? Go ahead, Shamar.
No,
Sorry.
I just wanted to add something when you read off Erica's comment when she was talking about changing the perspective. Honestly, that's one of the things that really, really blessed me and helped me through the situation. I had to change my perspective. First, I had to be honest about what I was truly feeling and transparent about my feelings, but I had to also change my perspective. And basically going back to what Brianna said, thinking about those moments of being able to carry that child in the womb, or just being excited that I could be a mom, or taking just the whole thought process is very important. um how you say things. I think Erica said instead of saying death, I think she used transition. So some of those words can be a trigger. You have to figure out what word is a trigger for you and then change your perspective and your language to help you in the coping process. For me, that's what helped for me, and a lot of journaling.
So journaling, changing your language, those are all some coping mechanisms. I think about finding community.
Oh yeah.
So
Hmm.
finding people they have walked with a similar journey, people who may be at different stages in that journey. So I do think it's important. So there's probably a lot of connection that can be made if two people are experiencing fresh grief. So let's just say two people may be experiencing divorce at the same time, right? I do think there's something to be said for that bond and that community. But I also think it's important that we think about connecting with people who may be at a different place in their journey. So you may want to connect with someone who is 3 or 4 years post their divorce. They've been through counseling. They have some new language for it. They're in a different space because they can give you some different perspective, right? They've been where you are, but they've been able to see how the journey unfolds. And so I would also say to try to not get. It's okay to move through the phases, but don't get stuck. What we see, what we call complicated bereavement, is when people get stuck in a stage. So there's no time limit on grief, but it might not be helpful to be in anger for 3 years. Like that's gonna be a hard place to be. And I've seen where people have gotten stuck in anger and they just lashed out at everybody around them. And when they looked up, when nobody left because they had just unleashed their anger on everyone. And so it's important not to get stuck in a stage. And if you find yourself getting stuck, seek out for support, seek out for help. Like you don't want to get stuck in sadness, right? You don't want to get stuck there. You want to be able to say, I'm moving through this. I'm leaning in. I'm being authentic. I'm being real about what I feel, but I'm not going to be here forever. And so that's with anything. And so I was telling Tevis, I was saying like I had got stuck in a phase of I had got stuck in anger about a situation, and the least little thing would just set me off. And I mean, it would just trigger me. And I remember thinking like, I'm doing myself more harm by being here, right? So I need to figure out what I have to do to move through this phase. And so I think it's just important that we are self-aware. So tonight we talked about a lot. We've had some technical difficulties, but I do want to say thank you to Shamar and to TJ and to Brianna. And what I'm taking from their conversation is a couple of things. Be authentic. Um, be real about your faith. That you may go through stages where you can hear the song, stages where you can't, stages where it doesn't feel like God is near. And then there are times when you feel He's so close to you, and it's okay to move through that. And then what I gathered from them too was be intentional about doing the work. And I think they are able to come on today, and I'm so grateful that they agreed because they have done the work. So I'm seeing some comments. Hey, Pastor Stephanie. And Steph, you talk to a lot of grieving families, so I'm sure you can add some conversation to this. Don't get stuck. Yeah. And Erica said, one thing I do to cope during tough times, I tell myself daily that I'm one day closer to my total healing. Yeah. And it's important to see it as a journey. To see it as a journey and say, like, hey, I'm not where I was yesterday, right? I may not be where I want to. I mean, it's old school cliche. I may not be where I want to be, but I'm not where I used to be. And so to be able to see yourself moving through that journey is very, very, very important. Um, so yeah, so I'm so grateful for tonight. I hope that this was helpful to someone. For those of you who are grieving, who are going through grief, I very much encourage you to find a support system. I encourage you to seek out counseling. Like I said, there are, and what I'll do is I'll go back on the live and put comments of some resources that you can seek out supports in your area, in your geographic region, so that you can access that support. And back to our whole thing is about faith and mental health. And so I cling to, we don't grieve as those without hope. And so be kind to yourselves, be compassionate in your journey, and remember that there is hope. So are there any, Crystal has a question. My dad visits the cemetery every day. You know, I have learned to be gracious towards people's process, and that all of our processes may look different. And so we may have different needs. We may have different things. Not too long ago, my mom was asking, did I want to go visit my Uncle Stoney's grave? And I told her, I was like, I didn't want to go there at the time, but it was very important for her. And so different people have different things that they need to do. And so I tend to say whatever is working for your healing, if it's a healthy coping mechanism, to that people can work that out with themselves. So that's my thoughts on that, Crystal. If anybody else has any thoughts about that, then chime in. But I say that we just have to be, I don't know if the word is gracious, but just understanding that different people have different processes.
Yeah, I agree with you, Janae. Everybody's process is different, but also giving yourself grace and giving that other person grace as well, because the way you cope may not be the way that, your dad needs to cope, or your aunt, or, however, whoever, everybody's process is different. It's going to look different. It's going to feel different. And one thing that I did want to say too, even with my experience, people would say, well, you should be over that by now, or, you should be moving on by now. That's not safe to say to people, because that's, again, everybody's process, their timeline, how they grieve, it's all different. If you see that that person is not healthy, then, it's becoming a little unhealthy for them, then that's a conversation that you can have. But, you can't really tell them how to grieve. And one thing I wanted to do is also be transparent and say, we went through everything with Jax in July. I did not decide to get a counselor until January. I should have went ahead and found a counselor in July, immediately, probably 2 or 3 weeks after it happened, because I can honestly say that I stayed in that stage of anger. I think it prolonged because I leaned on family to be my counselor and to understand
Mhm.
me. And it wasn't fair for me to put those expectations on them while they were grieving as well. So I am definitely one that to encourage everyone to go get you a counselor or therapist. It is a great thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that, Shamar. And one thing, one of my therapist colleagues reminded me of, she was like, when people are in that fresh grief, they may not be ready to see a therapist, right? So I'm pushing in therapy, and it's very normal to not be ready at first. But I do encourage you not to wait a long, long, long time, because to your point, Shamar, there were places that you stay. I mean, that's the word. There are places metaphorically that you stayed too long, that if you had some support, you may have been able to walk through with a little bit more ease. And so thank you for sharing that. There was one more thing, but it slipped my mind. I can't remember what I was going to say, but I'm just really thankful for this conversation. And I think this conversation is so nuanced. Grief is a very sensitive topic when we began talking about it, and so I appreciate the ability to just have really candid conversations with people about grief and about loss. And so there is no time. I think what I wanted people to take from it, there may not be a time limit. Your process may look different, but there is support resources that are available that will help you walk through that process. And to normalize that COVID has very much complicated our grieving processes. And so I think about when we lost Uncle Stoney, it was July of 2020. And it wasn't until last Thanksgiving or last Christmas, whatever holiday it was, when we were starting to come together again, it was just like the realization hit us that he was not here. And so you may find yourselves, quote unquote, 2 years kind of behind because nothing has been normal, or we haven't had our normal grief procedures. So if you think about like the ability to gather for what we call setting up, you know what I'm saying? Like we haven't had that, the traditional kind of services that we were used to having. In some ways we're getting back to that, but we hadn't had that. So if you lost someone during the pandemic and you find yourself maybe thinking that you're behind in timeline for grief, just know that a lot of those things that we use to cope and we use to grieve, we did not have. And so you may find yourself adjusting and navigating to that. So we could definitely go on and on about this topic, but our time is drawing near for tonight. Again, I'm going to post some resources in the comment section. We talked a lot, and again, I want to say we talked a lot about grieving the loss of loved ones tonight. But if you find yourself grieving dreams and careers and relationships, because even in relationships, when relationships end, a lot of times we don't miss the person. We're grieving the loss of the potential. We're grieving the loss of the dream of that relationship. So I think back to past relationships. I'm like, that wasn't no way near healthy. So I know I ain't sad about losing them, but I was sad about adjusting to the possibility or losing what I thought the possibility was going to be. And so you may find yourself kind of in that grief stage with relationships, and that's totally normal. But again, walk through those stages so you don't stay stuck. You may find yourself in your career. Maybe you lost your job and you're trying to figure out, what do I do next? You may find yourself grieving that, and that's okay. Just continue to get support so you can walk through those stages. My co-host went to get the kids because they just, everything just went awry tonight on the internet. My kids started screaming. So I'm closing out the show. But we hope that you have enjoyed. Thank you again to my guests. If you have questions, hit me up. I want to say thank you to everybody who has gotten your Pieces Power merchandise. Oh my God, y'all really blessed me. So if you haven't grabbed yours yet, go to www.davidharris.com and grab you some Pieces Power merch. I will be shipping out the orders that I received over the weekend. I'll be shipping those out tomorrow. And so I'm just so excited, and it makes me so happy when I see people post with their shirts, because I'm really excited that we're just having conversations about mental health now, and that the stigma, I'm believing that the stigma will continue to decrease. And Erica sent me the eyes because she doesn't have her shirt yet. I'm going to get it to you, Erica. Don't fuss me out. Don't fuss me out. I'm going to get it to you. But yeah, we're having conversations and we're normalizing, in the past when people had conversations about emotions and stuff, it was all about, oh, this person crazy or whatever. And that's we're changing the language and we're saying we're humans. We have human experiences. Yes, we are people of faith and we're leaning to that, but we're going to be real and authentic, because that's the only way we're going to heal. If not, we're going to have a whole bunch of people just walking around fake, and not in a shady way, but just ain't nobody being real, ain't nobody healed. We just all walking around like surface level. And interacting with each other at the top of the iceberg instead of really delving deep and forming meaningful relationships with each other when we are authentic. So I'm appreciative of these conversations. And so thank y'all for tuning in tonight. Thank you for sticking with us through all the technical difficulties. The whole internet went down at my mom and dad's house. I couldn't even get my cell phone. I told y'all the show almost didn't happen because me and Tevis almost quit the show together. But see, but it must have been meant for us to be here, even through all the technical difficulties. So love you all. Wish you much, much peace. Remember, there is hope even in grief and loss. And we pray healing and just for everyone. And I just want to say thank you again to Brianna, TJ, and Shamar for sharing their stories, for keeping the show going when my internet dropped, and so for just being good people. So y'all have a good night, and hopefully I think we should be back next week. Hopefully we won't have the internet troubles again, but we'll see. But hopefully we'll be back next week. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shamar.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me share my story.